The cucumber harvest has begun. Time to make some bread and butter pickles. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Adobe Ring Ranch kitchen. The cucumbers are producing cucumbers pretty heavily now, and I thought I would show you a quick refrigerator recipe for bread and butter pickles today. Clint and I really love this recipe. I made a number of batches last year, and the best part about this recipe is that you can leave them in the refrigerator for up to 2 months, even though they don't last that long. It just saves a little time in the canning process, but if I do have overabundance of cucumbers, I'll probably try canning up a few to see if I could get them to last much longer than 2 months. But for right now, the harvest is a manageable amount, and even if I have 3 or 4 jars in the refrigerator going at one time, it will get consumed, and I don't have to worry about losing any of the cucumbers. So this recipe I had gotten from one of the members of the TV Food Network. Too bad that show sucks now, or I should say that network. Anyway, this is a great recipe, and I do have a dill pickle refrigerator recipe as well, but Clint and I are leaning towards this sweeter pickle recipe. So if you're a fan of a sweeter pickle, this is definitely the recipe for you to try. A little background history. I had done a little research why it's called bread and butter pickles. Apparently, back in the day, people would make these pickles and trade them for bread or butter or both. I guess during the Depression time, when money was tight, people would grow the cucumbers, make these pickles, and trade them in for other food staples. And I guess bread and butter was the most popular item they were looking for, so I guess they inherited the name bread and butter pickles. So I will shut up now and show you how I go about creating these pickles. Okay, so I've laid out some of the items I'm going to need for today's pickle recipe. The most important thing is going to be a glass jar. I think you can do it in a plastic jar, but I prefer, or container, I prefer a glass jar. And you don't need anything as fancy as I have here. I've saved a number of jam/jelly jars in the past that I had cleaned up and bleached, and I've done this recipe in those jars without a problem. It's just that I have this one available for today, so I'm going to use it. Obviously, you're going to need some pickling cucumbers, and you're also going to need some onion. I can't give you the exact amount of these cukes and onions because it would all depend on the size of your jar. So just kind of eyeball it, but what you're going to want to do is, after we slice these up, you're going to want to cram as much of the cucumbers and onions in this jar as possible. You're really going to pack it in there. Anyway, getting back to the other ingredients, you're going to need a cup of apple cider vinegar. You're going to need a cup of water. You're going to need 1.5 cups of sugar. You're going to need a 1/2 teaspoon of mustard seed. You're going to need a 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric. You're going to need a 1/2 teaspoon of celery seed. and a half a teaspoon of pickling spice. Other than that, I'm just gonna throw in a little pinch of salt in the brine, because these ingredients are basically for the brine that you're gonna have to toss into a saucepan and get heated up while you're slicing up your onions and cucumbers. So let me get all these ingredients into my saucepan here, and we will tune in 1 more minute. Okay, so what I have going on here would be all of the brine ingredients in the saucepan on a low simmer, and occasionally I'm just stirring this up. We want all of that sugar to be dissolved within the vinegar and water liquid there, and then moving over to the actual vegetables. I'm slicing up the cucumbers about maybe 1/8 of an inch thickness. I take the ends off. I discard the ends. From what I understand, there's a bitter compound in the ends of the cucumber. I'm not sure. I haven't done a taste test, but I did just remove the little portion of the end here. It'll go in the compost pile. As far as you could leave these circles the way they are. For me, I like to kind of have them in bite-sized pieces, so when I do take them out of the jar, I don't have this big hunk of cucumber to eat. But if you like it that way, leave it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to slice these little rings in half, and then that way it's a more edible size for me. And I'm also going to do the same thing with the onions. The onions were cut in the same thickness as the cucumber, and basically with the onions I'm going to be cutting them into quarters, these little rings here, like so. And then I'll break the rings apart. And then from here, what I'm doing is I'm actually starting to layer the onions and cucumbers within the jar. I'm starting with the onions at the bottom. It really doesn't matter. And then I do a layer of cucumber, onion, cucumber, onion, and I just kind of stagger the cucumbers as I stack them in, because you want the brine to get in between all of the cucumber slices. As you can see, if you're not a huge fan of onion, you can reduce the amount of onion. It's not a big deal. I don't think it's going to make it taste any different, but we do like the onion in this recipe, so we leave it in. So let me get the rest of this jar filled up, and I'll be right back. So here we have our glass jar filled with cucumbers and onions all layered up. As I got to the top, I kind of pressed the cucumbers down just so I could fit as many cukes as I could in there. And then in this measuring cup over here is the heated brine. Hugh is actually listening to himself. I'm finding myself a little klutzy today, so I poured the saucepan brine into the measuring cup just so I could pour it a lot easier in here without making a big mess. So all we're going to be doing is taking our cucumber onion mix, and we're gonna slowly be pouring the brine mixture into the glass jar here with the cucumbers and onions. And sometimes you need to shake the jar a little bit just to get that brine in between the all the layers of onion and cucumber. Boy, this brine is really smelling up the house, I'll tell you. So we're almost at the top here. There will be some air bubbles, like within the layers here, you'll see them trickle up to the top. I just give the jar a little shake to get things where the air pockets come out and the brine gets in between all of these layers. All right, I've got a little bit of brine left. Let's see if we can top off this jar. And we are definitely at the top here. It doesn't matter if some of your spices come to the top. It'll the flavors are in there, so it's all good to go. But what you want to do is get the brine as all the way up to the top of the cucumbers. You can leave a little, maybe 1/4 inch gap just for a little breathing room, but just make sure you shake up that jar a little bit just to get some of those air pockets out of there. Now, if you don't have enough brine to fill up your jar, you can take your apple cider vinegar straight out of the bottle and just top off your brine mixture. It's perfectly fine. You've got enough sugar in the brine to counteract that acidity. But it looks to me like we are pretty well situated here with the amount of brine I've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be covering this up, putting the lid on it. It's got a little spring on here. There we go. So I'm all locked in. Now, before you put this in the refrigerator, let it cool down. It'll be probably like an hour or two just to let it settle down and cool down. Something else I want to make mention that last year I was working, so I was only here for a month, and I made a number of jars of these bread and butter pickles for Clint before I left. And there were a number of cucumbers still coming along on the vines outside after I left. So what I had Clint do was to actually save the brine from his jars after he finished eating the bread and butter pickles. And I had him dump out the brine into the measuring cup, and then he refilled the jar with his his cucumbers and onions again. And he poured the brine back into the jar. And he did this, I believe, 2 times after this. So you can reuse the brine. I wouldn't recommend using it more than 2 or 3 times, but because Clint was eating them so rapidly that it was okay to reuse that brine. And he said it turned out well. So please, after you're done with your first jar, if you've got any extra brine and you really like the recipe, I would save the brine and just load up the jar again with cucumbers and onions and do it again. Now, after this cools down, we're going to be putting this in the refrigerator and letting it sit in the refrigerator for about a week. I've done sometimes 2 weeks. If I did multiple jars, obviously, the first jar would be consumed faster than the second. So the second jar had like another maybe week or so of brining time or sitting time to get those flavors going. But it's been pretty darn good after a week of being in the refrigerator. So just let it sit in the refrigerator for at least a week and then give it a little taste and see if you like it. If you're not quite happy with it, just leave it in for another week. But I guarantee you, after a week, you're really going to love this. So that's a wrap with the bread and butter pickles recipe, refrigerator method. I do have a dill refrigerator pickle recipe if anyone's interested. Maybe I'll do that one, that recipe a couple weeks down the road. We'll see how quickly we eat these and if we're interested in even making them, because this is definitely one of our favorites. So that's a wrap from the Adobe Ring Ranch kitchen for today. I hope everyone tries this and enjoys them as much as we do. And please stay tuned for the next video from the Adobe Ring Ranch. Take care, everybody.